We're going to be discussing the new leader of the Green Party, Zack Polanski, who my lovely producer Ted assures me is proving to be quite a popular figure. Not with me, ain't. Also, clearly not of his dentist, but there you go, that's another matter. Let's have a little look, because he was on Question Time last night, and there was a bit of a clash with Reform's head of policy, Zia Yusuf.
Nigel Farage, he joined forces with the Swedish Democrats in the European Parliament. This is a far-right Nazi group. They want to deport people, not based on the colour of his skin, but from the places that they've come from. They also, Nigel Farage, talks about it being the end of democracy because of the way certain ethnic minorities are voting. These aren't robust words, as Annabelle called them earlier, or we've heard on the conversation. This is racism, it's fascism, and we should call it out.
Well, there you go. I bet that Zia Yusuf, as head of policy, is very keen to deport himself and his entire family based upon the religion and ethnicity. Ridiculous comments. I mean, it's quite insane, actually, pointing to someone of Muslim Sri Lankan descent and saying your party wants to deport yourself. But there you go. Make it make sense. Let's talk now to Donnachadh McCarthy, who's director of Climate Media Coalition. Because, Donnachadh, I understand that you're actually a cautious fan of Mr. Polanski.
I'm not a member of the Green Party. I'm a former deputy chair of the Liberal Democrats. I like to see the positive from all parties that actually contribute to a better Britain. And I think Zack Polanski's eco-populism is a really interesting initiative. I've been talking about that for 2 years. I'm really glad to see some politicians now understanding it. What it proposes is that we tax the rich people who are polluting our planet and trashing our environment, and we use that funds to enable poor people to have a better life. So what does that mean? The rich people who fly 10 or 12 times a year get taxed for a frequent flyer tax, and we use that money to fund rural bus services for the rural poor. Over the last 10 years, we've lost 50% of rural bus services, and that means poor pensioners in rural areas are often trapped and cannot get around. Those are the type of eco-populist policies of making things cheaper, such as energy cheaper through using green energy and insulation for people living at home, rather than the reform tax on electricity, which is utterly mad, to make energy more expensive for people by putting a tax on green electricity. So I think eco-populism is an important issue. And secondly, the second thing that he's bringing to the table, I think why your producer said he's so popular, if you look at his recent party political broadcast, which has got 10.5 million views.
Well, it's mainly because he just goes about saying SHT all the time, like every other sentence. He's just using a curse word.
What he actually proposed in that was he actually brought out the issue of the transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich. Since 1990 in Britain, we've had nearly 1,000% increase in billionaires, 1,000% increase in their wealth, and the 50 richest families in Britain now own the same wealth as the poorest 50%.
The problem is though, Donnachadh, if we're going to talk about this, the big problem is there's the idea of the Laffer curve, right, which was designed by a brilliant economist in America, Art Laffer, where he says, well, if you start putting taxes up so much, what happens is the people who pay the most into the exchequer, the people who are taxed the most, the richest, will just go. And what we've had in the UK is last year 10,500 millionaires left the UK. This year it's 12,500. So in total, we have at least 22,500 multi-millionaires who would have been putting a lot of money into the exchequer, who are just not doing it anymore because they've left Britain. And that has a devastating impact on the economy.
Well, having a system where you allow people to take all of the wealth that they've taken by avoiding taxes out of the country means, of course, that they can do that. And so actually what we should do is actually put an end to that. One of the fascinating things, when I was deputy chair of the Liberal Democrats, and I looked at how all our political parties are funded and looked at how all our media are owned, what was the common denominator between the donors and the media owners? Was they're all based in tax havens. Britain uses a huge amount of money through the tax haven system. We need to grab that money back for the British public that's been stolen from, to invest in public service and to tackle the climate and ecological crisis. Make energy cheaper for people at home, make transport cheaper for people who are getting around, and actually make sure that we have systems that work in place for housing for poor people.
No, I must admit, Donnachadh, like, you know, clearly socialism isn't necessarily up my street. Eco stuff, it depends what eco stuff, but by and large it's not not massively up my street either, but I reserve the right politically for anybody who has that sort of different view of politics and pragmatically how we get to a better future, to think that might be the best system. But what do you make of, as somebody who is, you know, part of the director of the Climate Media Coalition, clearly very concerned with these issues, that parties like the Green Party are desperately muddying the water when it comes to all the social justice warrior stuff? The fact that the deputy leader of the Green Party now, who's put some pretty concerning things on his social media that frankly sound, well, rather Islamist. And then you've also got the whole debate over whether men can come into women's spaces. I mean, surely the Green Party would be better if it just was the Green Party rather than the Green Party plus trans plus, you know, Muslim rights and all the rest of it.
Well, obviously, as you point out, I'm director of the Climate Media Coalition, and we seek to work people in all political parties because we think the threat to our economy and a threat to food supply and threat to Britain's borders affect all of us, no matter what our politics are. And I think the issues you've just mentioned, one of the issues you mentioned, which is the trans issue, affects 0.01% of the population. We actually need to talk about the issues that affect Britain as a whole, all of us. There are no human rights on a dead planet. The defence chiefs. Starmer was reported yesterday as having suppressed a report from the Defence Intelligence Chiefs that one of the greatest security risks to Britain is our food supply due to extreme weather and climate impact. The Welsh Farmers Union actually extraordinary statement said due to the extreme weather from climate change, the Welsh Farmers Union said they can no longer guarantee secure food supply for us. We need to be talking. I thought it was really sad yesterday in the shouting match between Zia and Zack. It was a shouting match from both of them. I think the hot air was very useful. But because of that, they didn't move to the question that they were supposed to debate, which is on climate change. Yes, we need to discuss migration, but we should have also discussed...
This is when you talk about, you know, noise, distraction, shouting match, things which aren't focusing on the issues that are very close to your heart. I mean, when Zack Polanski appeared on Uncensored with Piers Morgan, this is what ensued.
Can a woman have a penis?
Yes. It's going to take them a long time on the National Health Service to get rid of it, but that's another separate problem.
All right. I think we'll leave it on a woman can have a penis. People can
I think you're lacking nuance and complexity about a pretty complicated
Not really. You couldn't have been clearer.
I'm clear, because actually when you want to look at the science...
You were crystal clear. Ask a simple question.
But you're laughing at it, which I think demeans trans people.
Absolutely ridiculous.
What have you got against trans people? Why are you punching down? Why are you not saying
nothing against
the real
trans
problem
people?
in this
I've already
country?
told you that I think trans people...
You sound like you have a huge problem with trans people.
No. It sounds to me like you don't understand what a woman is, which I think is a huge problem for someone leading a party in this country.
A woman is a gender.
Sorry?
You said what's a woman?
No,
a woman is a
is
gender.
A biological
and gender
female.
is complicated.
No.
Gender is a spectrum.
It's not complicated. A woman is a biological
gender a spectrum? Is it that binary?
Do you think people are born male and female?
Not necessarily.
Oh, for God's sake.
I think it's more complicated than that.
It's not more complicated, Zack.
Well, it's not more complicated than that if you're a TV show host who wants to make it binary and ridiculous.
Zack, you're going to have to work this stuff out,
if you want to have a nuanced conversation that actually reflects science,
you know, when I asked you if you want to be Prime Minister, there is not a cat in hell's chance of you ever becoming Prime Minister if you don't know what a woman is. The UK Supreme Court has made it crystal clear.
But that's not the Supreme Court's job. The Supreme Court's job is to look at legislation
lay down the law
and
of
then make a
land.
legal ruling.
OK. So you know more than the Supreme Court?
Well, yes, actually, in this case, yes, I do.
I mean, that's the problem, isn't it, Donnachadh? This blimmin' debate that keeps going on and on and on with zealots, which is what I think he is, because as a woman, I would be very freaked out if a man with a big girt beard came into my changing room or into the public bathroom. I'm a woman, I get to say that. I would feel scared, right? And the problem is the Green Party, instead, when the Green Party was originally founded, it was all about green issues. It was all about saving the environment. Now it seems to expend a lot of energy on these crazy top-down activism, social justice warrior issues that the vast majority of the population absolutely despise.
I think what we've just experienced is exactly the problem that I identified. The media focuses on something that affects 0.1% of the population, blows it up and talks endlessly about it. He didn't ask him about the issues that affect the cost of living for people, poor people, for the cost of living for their food, cost of living for their housing, cost of living for their transport, all of which are going up above inflation. Those are the issues that eco-populism that Zack in other fora rightly talks about. We shouldn't be spending all our time talking about issues that affect 1.1% of the population.
Well, you do wonder. This is what I'm saying. We should it's called the Green Party, not the Social Justice Warrior Party. I think it'd be doing a lot of people in your movement a favour by letting go of that craziness.
But would you agree if Piers Morgan had actually had an interview with him about what does he mean by eco-populism? Rather, he brought up the issue and focused on for like 5 minutes. It was Piers Morgan put it at the centre of that debate, not Zack. Zack would probably, I hope, would want to talk about eco-populism, how we make Britain's cost of living cheaper for people who are in the working class who need it to make their food cheaper, their transport cheaper, and their home heating cheaper. And that's what a green eco-populism agenda does. And I think taxing the multi-billionaire class to do that, who are polluting us, is the right thing to do.
Donnachadh, it's been wonderful catching up with you. Thank you ever so much.